Hello. So, I wanted to leave a few things ready for you while I'm going to be away. I will miss the connection. I'm looking forward to being away, but I will miss the connections with you. And so I went back and took 2 messages from our Embracing the Uncertain, which were part of our time together during this COVID crisis. And I've prayed them down, took out a lot of them, of the message, and I just want to share them with you and leave them with you for messages for these weeks while I'm away. Just reminders. You might remember them, you might remember a little bit about them, you might not remember them at all, or you might not have seen them. Whatever it is, I want to share them with you, and I want to ask you to just take them in and on board and apply them in your own spiritual lives over these next few weeks. So this first one is from the first week that we met online. So the first week that we were not together physically. The scripture passage, and I'm not going to read it, I'll leave that to you. Scripture passage is Luke chapter 12, verses 13 through 34. And I say this might be one of the hardest passages in scriptures. One thing we can do with it is chalk it up on a long list of texts that we might headline with the words, "That's easier said than done." Because Jesus says, do not worry about anything, to which all of God's people say, yeah, right. In the middle of some very intense dialogue in these verses, right in the middle of this long discourse Jesus is having with his disciples and with the man in the crowd, we receive words about God's comfort and about his care. Now let's be clear. To receive the care of God does not mean we are lifted out of this world. Instead, it means learning to perceive God's presence and power in a new way. It's not about escaping this world. It's about interpreting the present time and seeing God right here with us and among us. Now, hardly any of us are immune to this particular theme of uncertainty, the one of worry. And even if you aren't particularly worried about anything, it's likely you know someone who is. Just as we were beginning this COVID crisis, I read this. So the weirdest part of living with or through this COVID-19 pandemic is this strange mixture of normalcy and emergency that we're all experiencing. I constantly feel like I'm either over or under reacting, or really both at the exact same time. It's surreal. 3.5 months into it, I still feel the same. So to our long list of worries and anxieties, here in Luke 12, Jesus gives the plainest, clearest, most succinct answer to worry that he would give anywhere in the Gospels. He says, do not worry about anything. Not about what you'll eat, not about what you'll wear. Not about anything. And what's interesting is that Jesus doesn't stop there. He keeps talking after he says those words. He could have easily said, don't worry, God's got this, and then stopped and then moved on to another topic. But Jesus has something else to say. There's a twist that you're not expecting. Well, we're expecting it because we know the scripture. But a twist that the crowd certainly isn't expecting. And he dares to challenge those listeners of the day, and therefore us, with a word that is hard for us to hear, but that we desperately need to hear. And here is the paraphrase. Store up for yourselves treasure in heaven, not treasures here on earth, where moth can consume or rust can destroy or thieves can steal. Get your priorities straight. Remember the things that are most important in light of the kingdom, and focus, my friends, on eternity. It's not a word we're expecting to hear, but one we need to hear if we're going to address worry and anxiety in our lives. Jesus was so clear. Pay attention to the things that really matter, because even in the midst of your worry and your anxiety, God is present, giving you glimpses of God's grace and reminders of God's strength and presence in your life. And so often you are too busy to even realize it. So yes, God is there to comfort us, but we need to pay attention to what He's doing and take note of it. It's a very hard lesson. When the swirls of chaos are drifting around us and within us, it is hard to open our eyes and unstop our ears to notice the activity of God in our lives. Will you sense it? Will you embrace it? Let today be the day when you and I will be intentionally more diligent in paying attention to the glimpses of God's grace that come to us in every moment.